I've made a lot of tutorials about how to draw, but I don't think I've ever made a tutorial about how to move your pencil, so that's what we're going to go over in this video. Okay, so there are two things we need to go over: how to control your pencil and how to hold your pencil. Now, in the case of controlling your pencil, there are multiple different ways you can do it, and each way gives you a different range of motion. So the first one would be you can draw your lines using just your fingers. So by contracting your fingers like that, you can draw these really small lines. The second way would be using your wrist, which lets you draw slightly longer lines, usually about twice as long as the ones that you can draw with just your finger. Then the third way would be moving your elbow back and forth, which allows you to draw really long lines, but kind of the issue with that is that your elbow is really bad at drawing vertical lines, but it's good at drawing these diagonal lines. And then the last thing would be moving your shoulder, which technically moves your whole arm, and this gives you the biggest range of motion. Now, these ranges of motion, of course, all excel at drawing different things. If you want to draw something really small, you would use just your fingers. If you want to draw something a bit longer, like hair, for example, you would mostly use your elbow to do that. And then if you need to draw a really long line, like let's say you're trying to draw a leg, you would use your shoulder to do that. Now, a mistake that a lot of beginners make is that they tend to draw using just their fingers or just their wrist, which mostly comes from the fact that when you learn how to write, you're using just your fingers. So whenever people transition to drawing, they think that that's how you're supposed to draw as well. The result is that you end up with this chicken scratch way of drawing, which is also incorrect for a myriad of different reasons. Probably the most important one being it's really hard to maintain your line trajectory whenever you're drawing like this. And line trajectory would, of course, be, well, it's something that concerns the trajectory that the line follows. So, like, for example, if we have 3 points, the line would have to go through all of these 3 points, and that would be its trajectory. If you want to draw an object accurately, every single one of your lines needs to follow a very specific trajectory to accurately represent the object. If you're trying to draw a chair, for example, we know the legs would have to go down this way. You can't, for example, curve one of them this way when one of the other legs is just going down straight. That's just not accurate. But this is one of the issues with chicken scratching. It's super easy to accidentally get that trajectory wrong, and that ruins the form of your object. So that's one of the issues, and there isn't really anything wrong with just drawing short lines, but it needs to be intentional. And if you're still a beginner, a lot of the time it isn't intentional. Usually you just draw these short lines out of necessity, which is why when you're a beginner, it's always recommended to learn how to use your entire arm and always draw really long lines. And then as soon as you start getting a better hang of how your lines work, that's when you can start combining drawing short lines, then drawing a long line, for example. So range of motion is one of the things we need to think about, and the other thing would be how you actually grip your pencil. There are a bunch of different ways you can hold it, and it mostly just comes down to personal preference, but the main thing is that you do not want to grip it as hard as you possibly can. So with grips, you have an overhand grip, which forces you to use more of your shoulder, but the thing is, this overhand grip really only works with normal pencils instead of a pen like this, because you get that. You've got a regular tripod grip, and you can grip it at different points. So usually I tend to grip it somewhere in the middle and the back, but you can grip it all the way towards the tip as well. You can grip it all the way in the back too. So you can hold it however you want, but the main thing is you need to hold it very loosely. Even when you're drawing, you don't want to be gripping super hard, and you don't want to be pushing down extremely hard either. To give you an idea of how hard I usually push, with the default settings, this is what my pressure looks like. And again, I need to point out, technically it's not wrong to push harder, but it needs to be intentional. Because if you just do it all the time, that's how you end up with carpal tunnel syndrome. Also, one other thing, I know some people sometimes draw on really small surfaces, like smaller pieces of paper, smaller tablets, or even phones. But that's the thing, even if you're drawing on a really small surface area, you can still move your shoulder and your elbow. You don't have to use your fingers and your wrist. So even for you guys, you have to get used to using just your shoulder. Alright, so we're going to be doing a little bit of practice now. I want you guys to draw along with me. And the main thing we're going to be working on is just holding our pencil very relaxed. You don't want to grip it super hard. So I guess the first thing we're going to do is just draw some wavy lines. And another thing to keep in mind is that when drawing these lines, use just your shoulder. Avoid moving your wrist, avoid moving your fingers. Mostly just using our elbows and our shoulder. Also, try to draw these lines slowly and with control, because this is not just an exercise that teaches you how to properly hold your pencil, but this is also an exercise that teaches you how to actually control your lines. I've mentioned this before in a bunch of other videos. Line control is one of the most important fundamentals when it comes to doing art, because your control over your lines very heavily determines how good the form is that you can draw. So by practicing this, you're going to get better at controlling your lines, which is going to make you better at drawing in general. Of course, when you're actually drawing, you don't have to go this slow. You can draw faster, you can draw shorter lines if you want, but it always has to be intentional. Okay, now we're going to draw another set of lines, and we're going to draw these lines in between the previous set of lines. The main thing I want you to remember is that all of these lines should also be drawn in one go. So instead of drawing super short lines, every single line needs to be one really long line. You might see gaps in between the lines that I've drawn, but that's not because I'm letting go of the pencil. That's just because the pressure that I'm putting down is too light for the pen to actually draw a line. Like I said, this is also a line control exercise, so when you're doing this, try to make sure that the line that you're drawing in between all of the other lines always has the exact same amount of distance between both of the other lines. Even in my case, it's not perfect. You can see that there are a ton of lines that are actually drawn incorrectly, but that's why you practice it. Try to get better and try to get it as close to perfect as you can. Then next we're going to draw lines in the horizontal direction, and I guess we can just reuse the paper. So we're going to be doing the exact same thing. Leave a gap in between every line that you draw, and then we're going to do another set of lines in between these lines. Another thing also is that you don't have to use just wavy lines like what I'm doing right now. You could also use straight lines, just horizontal lines, vertical lines. You could also draw a bunch of circles and have those circles be at varying sizes, or something that I'm doing a lot right now is I'm drawing boxes, and then inside of those boxes I'm drawing cylinders. And there we have it. Now, I do recommend that you guys do line control exercises similar to this every single day, not just to learn how to move your arm, but also to get better at actually controlling your lines. If you want me to give you a reminder to do this every single day, be sure to join our Discord server, which is linked in the description, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so through YouTube memberships, which are also linked in the description. But I guess I'll catch you all in the next video.